This recording may contain content unsuitable for children. Hey everybody, welcome to the Dungeoncast. I'm Brian.
And I'm Will.
This is the podcast where we talk about everything Dungeons & Dragons, from succulent slimes to seductive succubi. And today, it's Halfling time.
Prepare yourselves.
I cast Fireball. The Dungeoncast.
Today we're talking about Halflings.
Yeah, today we're talking about Halflings, or as a lot of people will probably recognize them from pop culture, hobbits. Hobbits
Yeah.
are probably the original Halflings out there. Although I've seen more variations on the Halfling race in fantasy literature and pop culture and D&D settings than I have pretty much any other race. It's actually kind of crazy how many versions of the Halfling there are out there.
So are they more, the other versions of the Halfling you're talking about, are they kind of still like hobbits, or are there different characteristics that define them?
Okay, so what hobbits are interesting because Halflings in D&D are more like the hobbits that Lord of the Rings and by extension The Hobbit are about, versus like when I say that I mean the main characters. I mean the Halflings in D&D reflect Frodo and Pippin and Merry and I guess a little bit of Samwise and Bilbo as individuals, but within their own mythos, those hobbits are very different from the rest of their own culture.
Yeah, they stick out like sore thumbs,
Yes,
especially Bilbo. They don't like him.
Yeah, exactly. Because Bilbo's an adventurer, which is so un-hobbit-like to them.
Yeah, they like their cozy, warm hobbit holes.
Exactly. And at
Hot tea.
and at the beginning of the book of the Hobbit, that's exactly how Bilbo is.
Yeah.
Although Gandalf sees that there's a little bit something different about Bilbo, but that's because Gandalf has history with Bilbo's family, or at least his
the
extended
Tooks,
family,
right?
the Tooks. Yes.
He really grabs hold of whatever he sees in Bilbo and tweaks
he's
it
just
to
like,
make
"You're
him
a
go.
Took, damn it! Get a hold of yourself."
Please, somebody else watch these dwarves. I can't anymore. Please, just go.
Exactly. Funnily enough, D&D is based off these 5 hobbits that are actually very unlike their cultural counterparts within their own mythos. But
It gets them up off the couch to go adventuring.
Yeah, but there is a subrace of halflings within D&D that kind of fit more with that first type, the kind that are maybe a little grouchy, and maybe they don't like to leave, and maybe they just like to be comfortable and get fat and old and die.
Introverts.
Yes, I've seen a lot of like variations on this one race, and I think it kind of speaks to us as a people that we have this strange affinity for halflings. I don't know if it's because they're so small and we just can't help but root for an underdog.
Right. That's what I was going to say, is like because of their size, they're automatically daunted by everything.
Yeah. And also I think because of their size, we liken them to children. And I don't know about you, but like whenever there's a movie, you really want the kid to succeed. You know, you don't want to see the poor kid, trodden upon.
Yeah, you're right. It is. Maybe it speaks to like the size. Like people see small people as people who struggle, but that's not the case ever.
Right.
There's always a way.
And then also, being a kid when I was exposed to a lot of this type of stuff, I feel like in a lot of ways I likened myself to the halfling type characters in their curiosity and in their different fears and their different struggles. And I feel like that association there just kind of made a soft spot.
Yeah, the name
my
halfling kind of implies a handicap a little bit to me.
Yeah. Although I would say mechanically speaking, no,
Yeah,
halflings are actually
not.
pretty badass. They're pretty cool. And before we get into the mechanics, I'll just talk about a couple of the variations of halflings I've seen in my time of reading. I know Dennis L. McCarran, he writes the Mythgar series, and in his books he has a variation on hobbits that are more like while a halfling might be considered like a half-sized man, his warros were almost like half-sized elves. And I mean, they had the pointed ears, they were incredibly stealthy, they were incredibly quiet, they were really attuned to archery and ranged weapons. They're really good at hunting. And one of their key characteristics is that they have eyes that are the color of bright gemstones.
Oh, cool.
And I always really like the Waros. It's probably my favorite version of halflings out there. Unfortunately, Dennis L. McKiernan his books, though successful, were never really too popular, so most people aren't too familiar with his work. And he actually modeled a lot of his stuff after Tolkien. And I think McKiernan started coming out with his stuff in like the 60s or 70s, while Tolkien came out before that.
Yeah.
But I've seen all kinds of different variations. I know in Dragonlance they got a variation of halflings called the Kender, which in D&D playing a Kender is highly frowned upon because Kenders are kleptomaniacs.
Oh, what?
Yeah, they steal mindlessly. They can't help themselves.
What are they? They look different? Or
they
what?
look like halflings. I think they might have slightly pointed ears, but other than that, like they look like halflings and they act like children. And
they just steal the shit out of everything loose.
They have a few like key characteristics that like make them different from halflings. All Kender are stricken upon a certain age with not an affliction or a disease, but it's like a mental state that just happens to them when they come of age called wanderlust, in which they just wander and they just go.
Well, that's
and
cool
you
for
usually
adventuring.
Never see them again.
Oh man! And then they just wander off.
And one of the reasons
it's kind of weird how they keep on breeding in like half a town.
Yeah, it kind of starts to fall apart because they do have a town. It's called Kendermore, and it's chaos. But
Kendermore, where if you need more Kenders, you know where to go.
Exactly. Another characteristic of Kenders is they are incapable of feeling the feeling of fear.
Okay, and that's something that a halfling gets mechanically, right? Like,
kinda, yeah. And that kind of goes back to the fact of the matter is that halflings are very brave, and they have to be. If they're adventurers, they may feel the fear, but they're able to work through it.
Okay, I was gonna say, like, does the absence of fear imply bravery? But no, you got it.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. In D&D, it's like that. It's like they have the brave feature, meaning they have advantage on saving throws against being frightened.
Excellent.
They're not immune to it. Kender literally cannot feel this emotion.
Frightening people is really good too, so that's a great thing to be immune to.
Yeah, absolutely. Kender are incapable of feeling fear, and it gets a lot of them killed. Because on top of their fear, they are constantly curious about everything. They can't keep their hands off of anything, and they have a really bad knack for being thieves.
And that can get you killed.
And when it comes to role-playing someone who is a kleptomaniac, when it comes to rolling a Kender, and the reason it's so frowned upon is because Kender is going to be stealing from his party mates constantly.
Oh man,
and
it goes
just
beyond
saying like,
just
"Sorry guys, it's in character." And
yeah, this is mine though.
Yeah, and I get it. And like, I wouldn't want that person in my party, and I wouldn't want someone to roll a Kender that way in my party. One of the things that I noted when I was reading these books, Dragonlance, Kenders do steal constantly, but they do it mindlessly. There was a plethora of times where Tazelhoff, the main Kender I read about, would be caught with an item in his pouch that he stole. He has no idea how it got there. He'd be like, "Oh, I must have been holding that for you." He would instantly justify it to himself because he doesn't remember stealing it.
Are you serious?
Yeah, I must have been like protecting it. Good thing I had that for you, huh? And
I would kick that guy's ass.
Yeah, but he did it in earnestly, like positively, like he's being honest.
Oh man,
like he doesn't remember taking it.
I feel like almost. I feel like the character I roll now would dedefinitely kick that guy's ass.
Yeah, and that's how a lot of people feel like when. That's why at a lot of tables Kenders aren't allowed. Although I think they're charming.
Sense.
Yes.
I've heard a couple stories about people in the party just causing problems, picking a character and rolling it so in such a way where it's going to cause issues. And I've heard of that, the party turning on that character and killing them, and then that person's got to re-roll, and then they re-roll another character that's going to eventually do the same kind of shit where the party's just not going to put up with it.
You got a deeper problem at that point when people are killing each other, and like that needs to be settled out of character. People need to figure out like their table dynamics at that point.
Right.
There's no problem at the table that you can't talk through, folks. Like, if someone's being a jerk, just talk to them about it.
Well, I think the case in this scenario is more that they like the drama of having inter-party issues and like that. They want that dynamic, which kind of is like, that's not the idea of D&D I had.
No,
but
it's definitely not
okay
like how I like
they're
to
into
play.
it. It's like a soap opera, except people die.
And again, that just, everyone needs to take a step back and be like, let's address this because this isn't how we want to play our game.
Well, or maybe it is. Maybe that's the table you're trying to run, but it's not the table that I'm accustomed to or that you try to run. So
thank you.
It's a little foreign to me, but I'm into it if that's what you want.
Yeah, through that.
Everyone's a Kender, and they just steal from each other, and everything is everyone's.
Yeah, Kenders are little shits, but I like Kenders. Not that I would want one involved in my D&D game. And there's all kinds of other variations of halflings. I mean, even outside of anything related to D&D, I think George Lucas made a movie called Willow, which again was basically the stout halfling folk going forth. Did you ever see that movie? It's a good movie.
Nope.
It's a really good movie. You should check it out.
By George Lucas.
I think
Willow.
Lucas, if Lucas didn't do it himself, I thought Lucasfilms was somehow indirectly or directly
He's
involved.
got his hands on it.
Good movie.
When did that come out?
Late 80s, early 90s.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a really cool, cheesy, campy, classic fantasy story in which there is a halfling. He's basically the chosen one and blah, 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 blah. But it's your basic hero's journey. And, and yet again, we see a halfling who has no business in any of this big world business making big
Quote,
changes.
unquote, no business.
It's basically Lucas's Lord of the Rings, if you will, or The Hobbit. But yeah, let's get into the mechanics of it. So halflings are short, and they're, I think, the first race that we're covering that actually constitute themselves as the size small. Dwarves are short, but they're still medium sized.
Okay, that's important.
Yeah, so
that's important for movement speed, right?
It's important. No, not for movement speed. That's a different mechanic.
Okay.
Although their speed is slower than other races because of their size.
Is it like 25?
Yeah, it's 25.
Okay.
But the size is going to affect different mechanics of the game. So, like, there are feats that have to do with sizes that you can take. There are certain things like pushing and pulling. I don't think you could push or pull anything larger than 2 sizes above your size category.
Right. I think the Goliath gets something that actually lets him lift something heavier. Do I have that right? Like, he gets to lift or push up to a size above him?
Yeah, basically. Although he is medium for most things, in certain cases he counts as large.
That's pretty cool.
Your size affects different mechanics. And this is the first small one that we're covering. As you said before, their speed is a little bit slower because their legs are a little bit shorter, and rather than 30 feet, they can move 25 feet and around. All halflings get the ability or the feature Lucky, and this one's a really cool one. It's a really cool feature. When you roll a 1 on an attack roll, ability check, or saving throw, you can re-roll the die and must use the new roll.
So you're probably not going to crit miss.
You're pretty much never going to crit miss ever.
That would suck to double up on crit miss.
That'd be a flub. That'd be something bad would happen in my game. If you crit miss twice, like, yeah.
Even with the mechanic, you would be like, nope, that was 2 1s in a row.
Yeah, because like, how often is that going to come up? Like, I don't know what the probability of it is, but I know it's really low.
Oh man, somebody hit me with like, I critted nat 20 3 times in a row, and I looked up the odds, and it was like 0.0125 or something like that. I was like, oh shit.
And I think in our last game, was it our last game or the game before? One of our last 2 games, Thanic shot off a spell and crit missed twice. And so I flubbed it.
And he had to his spell. It was a happy accident though, because one of his fireballs went wayward and hit another enemy,
a different enemy. An enemy he hadn't planned on hitting. So next up,
that guy died.
Yes, he did. You guys tore through those orcs like nobody's fucking business.
So good.
I came to some realizations last session, and I'm gonna have to up my game.
That was all our anger for the orcs, our bloodthirstiness,
like, Jesus, guys. So next up, halflings get a feature called Brave, which we kind of talked about, where they have advantage on saving throws. It's just because they're naturally brave folk, because they kind of have to be.
Advantage on all their saving throws?
On against being frightened. I'm sorry.
Oh, against being frightened.
Advantage on saving throws against being frightened.
Which is good. Lots of stuff is going to try to scare you.
Yeah, I would say so. Again, the first thing that comes to my head when I think of the frightened condition is dragons, because dragons usually exude some sort of dragon fear and like an aura around them. And then the last 2 things that all halflings get, despite their subraces, are halfling nimbleness, which basically says that you can move through a space of any creature that is of a size larger than yours, which is pretty much fucking everything because you're a halfling. And like, I'm pretty sure the mechanics outside of rules work the same in the other direction, where if something is a size category smaller than you, you can also move through it.
Okay, so, or it can move through you.
That might be wrong, but I would think that's right.
Like
because I think
the
something
inverse should be true.
Yeah, I think like tiny things like fairies, you can move through their spaces and they can move through yours.
Oh, like that. Okay, I get what you're saying. Yeah.
So I think it works like that. But either way, you're a halfling. You're going to be able to move through most things spaces because you're just so small.
Cool. So with that, and you mean that won't provoke opportunity attacks, right?
No, it still will.
Okay.
But like normally you just can't do it.
Oh, like you cannot move through that tile.
Yeah. So let's picture here, like you got two orcs guarding a hallway and there's no way through them. If you're not a halfling, you're going to have to take them down. Yeah. Shoulder to shoulder. But if you're a halfling, you'll take some opportunity attacks, but you'll be able to tumble right through their legs.
Would it be possible if you're not in combat, like if you haven't rolled for initiative or anything, to try and stealth by them?
I mean, I would allow if it seemed feasible, if like you were coming from around the corner and you were doing it really quick, a stealth and then maybe acrobatics check. And
like throw a rock down the other side of the hallway and
yeah,
slip
there
by
we go.
them.
There we go.
And
that's being creative. There we go.
Now you have, now you can, what is it?
They're not looking. You could stealth through their legs, maybe. I mean, it's going to be an insane roll, but maybe you'll get it.
And if you have combat going on after that, then you're now effectively behind a guy, and hopefully the rest of your party's in front of him, and that gives you advantage, right, on attack rolls?
Yeah, I play with the house roll where flanking gives advantage. Yeah,
that's pretty good.
Yeah.
So I'm used to that.
That's from my old school 4th edition days where flanking combat advantage was a thing.
I mean, it makes sense to me to do that.
Yeah. I mean, the rules are actually in there in the Dungeon Master's Guide. If you want to incorporate flanking into your game, like it literally tells you how.
That's pretty cool.
So
I like that mechanic because placement on the battlefield is important, and I feel like that adds flavor to it, like real life flavor. If you're attacking somebody from behind while they're distracted with somebody in front of them, you should have advantage on those kind of attacks. How are they going to dodge you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey everybody, thanks for listening and watching. We really appreciate your support. If you really want to help us out, though, we could definitely use some comments on our iTunes, some likes and subscribes on our YouTube page. That's what's really going to get us some traction. And if you want to help us out, we would really appreciate it if you guys did that.
Yeah, we're not doing any kind of advertising for the Dungeoncast, really, and like the best way for the word to get out is by word of mouth. So the more you guys share and maybe tweet out about our podcast and let your friends know, like the more traction that we can get, and the larger our audience gets, the more we'll be capable of bringing like our future projects to you guys.
Yeah, we're really trying to get the live game going, but we definitely we love doing this show. We're gonna keep making it, regardless.
Oh yeah.
But we love to hear feedback, and we do want to be a part of the community and really reach out and do stuff that you guys want to hear too. So go ahead and hit us up at the Dungeoncast at Twitter, the Dungeoncast at gmail.com. You can send us an email, give us some feedback, or just say hi if you want to. We'll be around. We like to talk to you guys.
Yeah, feel free to ask us questions. We could do a segment maybe where we answer questions that were asked that week. I have no problem doing that. Actually, I'd be excited to do that. By all means.
Will is really versed in the mechanics, so if you guys do have any mechanical questions about things, we'll work it out. We'll put it in the show, and we'll shout you out. We'll get your Twitter name on the show, and hopefully get you some traction too in return.
Yeah, and again, thanks for listening. We really appreciate it, and shout out to Sam. Whose mother told me he is excited for every episode that comes out, and he makes sure to listen to every episode. So thanks for listening, Sam.
Yeah, we appreciate you guys a lot. And thanks a lot to the Reddit communities and some of the forums that we've been asking for feedback in. You guys have been really helpful in letting us know what's going on. So we appreciate you guys.
Yes. Thanks again. Enjoy the rest of the show.
Enjoy it.
Okay, so and the last thing that halflings get, and this is every race gets this, they get to speak common and their native language. So halflings can speak common and halfling.
Okay, so halfling is the language.
Yes.
Cool. So they can take that anywhere.
Yeah. After that, there's two sub-races of halflings. There are the Lightfoot clan and the Stout clan. And the Lightfoot clan are the nimble, dexterous,
as the name implies.
As the name implies,
they're light on their feet.
They're light of foot and
probably quiet.
Yes, and probably very quiet.
So what do you get? Is there some kind of stat boost from that?
Yes, there is. And actually, I forgot about the initial stat boost that all halflings get, and that's the +2 to dexterity.
Nice.
Regardless of clan, you're getting that +2 to dex, which is really, really handy.
I love dex.
Dex is such a handy ability score to have bonuses in. But the Lightfoot clan also gets a +1 to their charisma score. And they get naturally stealthy as a feature, which means that they can attempt to hide even when they are obscured only by a creature that is at least a size larger than them. So they can literally obscure themselves behind their allies.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
So how would that help them? Like they couldn't be targeted by a range attack or something like that?
Yeah, actually that's one good way. Also, maybe the halfling wants to stay hidden behind his allies so that the enemy doesn't know that they have one extra person in
surprise
the group.
attack.
Who's to say? I'm sure that the feature is going to be able to be used creatively.
Has anyone in any of the games you played try to throw a halfling like maybe to get like some kind of advantage or like throw him up a wall?
I've heard of that happening. I've never actually ran a game or played in a game where someone actually played a halfling. It's funny.
Man, it sounds like so much fun.
Yeah,
though.
halflings are fun. I've played a halfling.
Okay.
And it was a lot of fun. I played a Hexblade halfling in 4th edition, and it was a load of fun.
Halfling. Did he have? Did you have a weapon on you?
Yes, he could summon a saber made of ice.
Oh shit!
Hexblades are dope as fuck.
Let me freeze your liver real quick.
Really wish there was a version of Hexblades in 5th edition because it's one of my favorite classes from 4th.
I better get on that homebrew.
You can get some stuff gets pretty close, but not quite there.
Okay.
But yeah, it's kind of funny how halflings are popular in pop culture. We like to watch them. We like to watch halflings succeed. Whenever there's a halfling NPC in my games, usually my players really warm up to the halfling character. But no one ever wants to be the small guy if they can help it, apparently. So I don't know why.
No, there's a lot of advantages to being small. Being big is great, but it makes you noticeable. Like all the things that the halfling does, I mean, it just screams rogue to me. You know?
Yes, halflings make great rogues.
Compliment all the bonuses you're gonna get.
It's a pretty big cliche, the halfling rogue.
Yeah. I would definitely do the mage hand thing. That's so sick.
Yeah, it is really cool. So the second subrace of halflings, the Stout Clan, as their name implies, they get an ability to increase their constitution. I liken these halflings more to dwarf. They're more dwarf-like. They're very sturdy.
Okay.
Very, very hardy little folk.
Better constitution and taking hits.
Mm-hmm. And they actually gain a feature that's very dwarf-like as well, called Stout Resilience, meaning that they have advantage on saving throws against poison and have resistance against poison damage, and that's exactly what dwarves have as well. So yeah, if you want to play a dwarf-like character who's also dexterous, the Stout Halfling's the way to go.
The sturdy, quick little guy.
Yeah. Now, in the direct D&D lore, we've actually talked a lot about halfling lore outside of the game's core lore itself.
Right.
The main things about halflings are they are a very peaceful people. They're very hardworking and loyal people. And I think the most common trait that all halflings have is they're very affable and they're very likable. They're very pleasant. They intermingle in other races, communities exceptionally well. That's why halflings can be found almost anywhere, from cities to towns to nomad tribes. Like halflings can make their home almost anywhere, and they do so very efficiently. And they can make their homes with dwarves. They can make their homes with elves. Everyone seems to like these guys.
Yeah, typically accepted or probably ignored in bigger towns and stuff like that.
And I think it's pretty valuable to have that ability to be so well liked and accepted, because you're so small, you don't want to be out there caught alone and eaten by the bigger things.
Yeah, and if you're adventuring, it never hurts to be liked.
Yeah.
People want to help you or will give you information just because they like you.
Charisma is a very underrated score a lot of the time. It can get you out of some trouble.
Yeah, it's one of those out of combat scores that is really just gonna help you out with getting information, or just like maybe you need a place to stay for the night. Who knows?
Yeah. That's why halflings actually also make great bards.
A halfling probably is not going to intimidate, but they get that bonus to the score, right?
Yes. So intimidation is interesting because big, scary classes like a big oafish orc fighter is kind of going to have a shit intimidation score because his charisma might not be that great.
Right.
And I find that a lot of people find that frustrating. It's like, well, shouldn't my big, burly barbarian be able to intimidate more effectively than, say, my halfling bard with this amazing intimidation score? And the answer is yes. He absolutely should. I would do things like adjust the DC accordingly. But also, here's the thing. Like, if an orc is going to intimidate you and like maybe punches a rock to demonstrate it, and That rock, of course, cracks in half because this orc's so strong.
Or he rolled a 1. He broke
That's
his
going
hand.
to fucking scare you, regardless of intimidation roll. For me, it's like you don't need to roll intimidation there. That's scary. Like,
Yeah.
there is no doubt in this prisoner or person's mind that you are capable of doing that because you just did it, and that you're willing to do it to them. Like,
And
they're gonna believe it.
And you are large. They saw how big you are.
Exactly.
So
I look at the intimidation skill as more along the lines of convincing someone to be scared of you, despite maybe you don't look so imposing.
And there are always, that's what I was going to say next. Is it's always, it's not just about your role; it's about what you're doing and like how you go about intimidating. Because a small person can just say the right words and like make a threat against you, and the role will help them believe it. Hopefully,
and the threat doesn't have to be immediate either. The threat can be like, you don't know when, you don't know where, but one day it's going to happen.
You see this?
You're not going to see it coming.
This knife will be in your armpit if you don't do it. If you don't do what we want.
And
believe me,
all you have to do is make them believe. And you're just really good at it because your charisma is the score that represents your force of personality, your force of will, your ability to make others believe what you say.
Almost like imposing your will on others.
Exactly. Which is why I like the concept of warlocks, because it's like it's their force of will that gives them the power to draw magic upon their source.
So high charisma is good for that kind of thing.
Exactly. So it makes sense.
That's cool. So you can intimidate with anyone. It's just about staying in character and how you go about it.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Let's talk more about running a halfling. The first thing that obviously that we spoke on earlier is the rogue class just jumps out, and those complement each other mechanically. But
they do.
I mean, that seems in the box. Let's talk about what else you can do. It doesn't seem like a fighter is really the right choice, just because you need like high strength.
Well, not necessarily, because you can run a dexterity fighter.
There you go.
Yeah,
okay, so what can you do with a dexterity based halfling? What would be cool?
Oh, you mean for the fighter specifically?
Yeah, like I would think more
cool
like
shit. Yeah,
like
you could do like
archery or something.
Oh yeah, you could do archery. That's a good one. That's why halflings also make good rangers. I'm still getting used to the idea of fighters being able to beat archers, because like that was such a ranger thing in the past.
Oh yeah,
I like it though. It's really cool. It's absolutely, and it makes total fucking sense, because not every archer is going to be a ranger.
Right.
And yeah, you could have a halfling archer fighter, but you could also have I immediately thought of a halfling dual wielding either knives or short swords and just being like a flurry, whirling blade.
Oh man,
whirlwind little guy. Like I don't know, that I find that terrifying.
Like
quite
fucking
frankly,
Yoda,
like going for the
that
knees,
bad movie.
going for the Achilles heel. Ooh, that's horrible. Like that's a horrible fucked way to go.
Just your legs.
Just
He's hitting me in the legs. I don't know what to do. He's moving through my tiles.
Like Jesus.
Well, so that would be a lot of fun. So a fighter,
cool.
dex-based fighter is something you can do.
Dude,
what
halflings
about
make good bards?
Yeah, casting magic.
They make good spellcasters just with that nice little charisma score boost. I mean, that's half your spellcasters right there. Sorcerers use charisma, paladins use charisma, warlocks use charisma.
If you watch Lord of the Rings, it kind of like hobbits are more like just humans or whatever, and it doesn't seem like they're like in Lord of the Rings. It's like, oh, this magic user came into town, and we're all like amazed. So no one in that town is casting any spells,
right? But also remember, in Tolkien's work, magic is very vague.
Mystique.
It's very steeped in mystique. It's indefinable. In D&D, halflings can totally be dope ass magic users. With warlocks, you're making pacts with like higher beings, and they're giving you their magic. Sorcerer bloodlines, you're born with it. So in the case of halflings, like I like the idea of a wild magic halfling, where like I forget what the wild magic source is, but with wild magic, it's your magic is like inherently chaotic and like difficult to control, and
so
like
it's detrimental to use it. In some cases,
it can be. It has random effects. There's a whole sorcerer's random effects table, which we'll get into in the sorcerer episode, which I don't want to get into now.
Yeah, we'll get into that another time.
Yeah. But yeah, they make good sorcerers. They make good bards. Again, that's another charisma spellcasting class. And
the bard,
paladins.
The bard, just real quick to touch on it, that's going to mainly be buffing the party, right?
Yes and no.
Oh, I know you can summon like big creatures and shit. That'd
yeah,
be pretty cool.
You can summon stuff as a bard, I think.
You were just telling me about riding a bear as a halfling, right?
Oh yeah. Back in 4th edition, we had a druid, and I think I told you that she transformed. I actually forgot about that's not true. She had a pet bear.
Oh shit!
Who I named Sir Barrington, and I rode into battle, and it was glorious, and it was really, really fun.
Was the bear armored, or was it just
no? It was
bear?
just a wild bear. But I will tell you about my armored bear one day when we do the Ranger episode. When I used to have a bear companion pet who was heavily armored.
That armored animals are fucking cool.
Yes, it is a cool concept. But yeah, I used to ride her bear into battle, and it was a lot of fun.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. Here's the thing about 5th edition is like any race can be any of the classes effectively, which is a nice new thing in this edition, because before, if you wanted to be that halfling barbarian, although awesome, like, that's such a fucking cool idea. I love it. You're not going to be very good at it, probably. What was that?
He's like an outcast. Like, nobody wants to chill with this guy.
He's this crazy. He probably got hit in the head when he was a kid, and he's a little special, but he's a fucking maniac in battle.
He craves the meats.
Yeah, he doesn't use weapons. He just uses his fucking teeth.
He sharpens his teeth and he bites the shit out. He's in my tile. He's biting. Now he's biting me.
God, to me that's way scarier than like axe wielding orc barbarian, because it's like, how do you deal with that?
You're a freak. We should character sheet that guy.
Yeah,
we should roll him.
Let's roll him. I don't want to go through the
not right
mechanics
now,
of rolling him in this episode.
I'm definitely gonna build a halfling barbarian.
Well, when we do the barbarian episode, we'll roll him.
Oh shit.
Yeah, there we go.
That'd be crazy. Okay.
Cool beans.
What else could we do with this guy?
I mean, again, with 5th edition, there's anything you do. I think halflings make good druids. I mean, you don't get the wisdom bonus, but I like the idea of stealthily moving through the woods and being one with nature. Again, halflings do make great rangers because of that dex bonus.
Yeah. And being stealthy and quiet and moving around and
halflings are one of those races where their bonuses that they have access to, constitution, charisma, and dexterity, are just variant enough for them to basically be pretty good at anything. Not as good as like the human or half elf are at that, because human and half elf are very versatile with their bonuses, but halflings are pretty close.
So it's definitely more advantageous to run a class that is going to benefit the halfling bonuses, but you can do anything you want. You know?
And that's the thing. Like, it's because of their bonuses. Like, the bonus to dexterity is good for almost any class. The bonus to constitution, that is good for any class.
Yeah, that's never going to lead you wrong. Being able to take hits.
Yeah, and then and charisma, that's over half of the spellcasters already, or about half of them. Because it's bard, sorcerer, paladin, and warlock. That's 4 of the spellcasting classes. The only other ones are wizard, druid, cleric, and technically the ranger also casts spells.
Right.
So yeah, half the spellcasters, and you get all that in one ability score. That's really badass.
And all these mechanics are cool, but you got to remember that you're going to be spending a lot of time not in combat or not rolling. You're just going to talk to people like normal and role play, which is the most important thing.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, with that, we're going to call it a game. I want to thank everybody for listening and watching. I always appreciate the support. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. Leave a comment on iTunes. Give us a rating. That would help us out a lot. We'd really appreciate it. Now, do you need some advice? I can't see you because this is a podcast, but it looks like you do. Luckily, I know a guy. His name's Sage DM. Go ahead and take it away, Sage DM.
Hey, everybody. Sage DM here with your Sage DM advice for the week. Remember, just because there's a goalie doesn't mean you can't score.